Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced, and welcome to another episode of my tech podcast. And before we get started with the topic of today, which will be MCP, Langchain, Agent2Agent, just kind of understanding like these protocols and sort of their role in building agentic applications, what I want to do is just give you guys a reminder that you can purchase my third book, Architecting an Iceberg Lakehouse, and you can get 40% off using the code MERCEDCONF, or like Merced Conference, MERCEDCONF25. And that should last through December when that code expires. I'll put all the information in the podcast episode description, so you can check that out. And also, you could always, of course, download my first two books for free, Apache Iceberg, The Definitive Guide, and Apache Polaris, The Definitive Guide, by heading over to Dremio.com, where you'll find the download links for both those books. And lots of other really cool stuff along the way coming down. But bottom line is that the path for sort of what are the architectural patterns for building agentic AI are becoming more and more understood. And I think for the most part, like all the craze right now has been around MCP, because MCP, at least from a software development side, really becomes sort of the standard for how do you build agentic functionality. Okay. So think of a MCP server as a unit, as a little bundle of what an AI agent can do. Okay, before MCP, you would use frameworks like Langchain, and in Langchain, you would just kind of, you would just basically code it out. But the problem is that when you build another agent with Langchain, you would have to kind of redeploy that code. So you're rewriting the same logic, redeploying the same logic over and over again. Now, with MCP, I could have a MCP server, which is one application. So it'll be one service that's running, and I can have multiple agents that communicate with that service and inherit all that functionality. Okay, and then I can connect that agent that could be built with something like a Langchain, and I can connect it to multiple MCP servers that give it multiple bundles of functionality. And this is where things like the MCP marketplace that GitHub is building becomes really interesting, because this makes it easier to discover what MCP servers are out there. So then it becomes just a matter, kind of like, like if I'm using JavaScript, I just use NPM to download whatever additional JavaScript powers I need. In this case, I can use the MCP registry to kind of find the MCP agents I need to add additional functionality to my agents. Okay, so there might be logic, like, for example, if I just need an agent that can understand the weather, okay, and be able to kind of find the current weather and do things like that. That is not something that's very specific to my enterprise. There could be just a readily available MCP server that's going to build all the weather functionality for getting the weather, understanding the weather, whatnot, that can then be combined with other MCP servers that I have. Someone can create an MCP server for pretty much any kind of possible questions you may want. Someone can create a one that just has the context, understands certain. For example, a lot of LLMs are not great at doing math, but someone can create a math MCP server that, instead of having the LLM do the calculations, passes the questions off into the right tools to do the mathematical calculations that are pre-programmed in the MCP server, and now you can add those functionalities so that way your agentic prompts that involve math can be more accurate more of the time. Okay, they can do the right calculations because instead of the LLM trying to do the calculation, it passes it off to the MCP servers to do the calculation. So that opens up a whole interesting world. But the thing is that you don't necessarily want to have one agent that has like a bajillion different powers, especially when some of those MCP servers are going to be connected to sort of enterprise infrastructure, like connected to different accounts and things like that. You may want to have different agents that are used by different teams with different levels of credentials, but sometimes, you might want you may want an agent that just represents your sales department that has access to your sales data, and then you may want to have a sales agent or an agent that represents your finance department that helps them with financial tasks. But you may then want to give them the ability to share data with each other or to share information with each other. This is where the Agent2Agent framework comes in, a protocol for basically enabling sort of agent-to-agent communication. So that way, instead of one agent having to have access and the ability to do everything, you can have agents that communicate with each other to get what they need. So that way you can have like each agent with the right security boundaries and access protocols for who can use that agent, when they can use that agent, built into that particular agent, but you still have, cross-bound, have ways for different cross-agent sort of workflows. Okay, when you start really sort of like thinking it through. Okay, so that's all really interesting stuff. Again, there's all these other sort of conversations that are kind of going on as far as like standardizing how you do semantics. Okay, so you have like at scale who's come up with like their own sort of semantic DSL, and what DSL stands for is a domain-specific language. So meaning they came up with a way of expressing semantics that's custom to them that they want to kind of have become the standard. Okay, and then there is Snowflake that's also working with others to do a standard. And there'll probably be other iterations on this as far as like trying to come up with a semantic standard. But there's all these different standards that are starting to arise. So like before, where it was just kind of everyone sort of trying to build AI tooling, everyone doing it in different ways, in different languages and whatnot, the tooling, the patterns are starting to become sort of more visible, more understandable, and whatnot. So bottom line is, it's much more clear today. Like if you were a developer or you're an engineer, whether you're on the data analytics side, or you're on the software side, what are the things that you should really start kind of getting a handle on today? And those are things like definitely learning Python, learning how to work with MCP, probably understanding the MCP registry, learning about the agent-to-agent protocol, and learning about frameworks like Langchain, because these are going to be oftentimes your typical building blocks for agentic applications. And when it comes to connecting that to your data, this is where platforms like Dremio can offer a lot, because it has things like a semantic layer built in, acceleration, it helps unify all your data, so that way you're not having to, instead of connecting like 50 different MCP servers for all your different data sources, you can connect one MCP server that gives access to all your data sources in the form of Dremio, and that also offers more efficiency sort of in the architecture that you're building. So these are just things to think about as you wait in today's sort of world. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. It's just sort of me kind of thinking about sort of where agentic things are going, and there's a lot of really interesting things going on. Like the possibilities with everything that's kind of set up technologically currently is just sort of makes my brain kind of tickle. So if you guys enjoy this, again, please tell your friends about the podcast. Leave the podcast a review on whatever platform you're listening on. And do check out my new book, Architecting an Apache Iceberg Lakehouse from Manning. Again, check out the podcast episode description so you can get the discount code so you can get 40% off. Definitely makes my day to see, people consume that content and learn cool new things. So I'll see you all later. Have a great day and enjoy.